There we are, live with Alright 8 with a dear friend of mine, Vesa. Vesa, before I ask you how you're doing, does this artwork behind me looks familiar?
Oh, it does very nice to be with you, Vali. Is your beautiful wife also going to join us, or is it just the two of us?
She she is joining us. She is running a little late. But first thing, how have you been, and where are you right now in the world? Spill some tea.
I'm currently enjoying some time in the south of France in a little town that is very bohemian, very artistic, and kind of now it's been a few days of a thunderstorm kind of a deal, but the Côte d'Azur is really just such a beautiful place to be around, and France in general as a country is so welcoming to art, has such a rich history with it, and in particular the way that I do things, it's quite compatible in many different ways. So it's been a real ride, and I went to Paris for a few days just a while ago to get to know some galleries and hang out with a good friend of mine that you're actually going to meet now in Dubai, Adrien, who runs this 3D printing studio over there. So it was really Paris really took me by surprise in so many beautiful ways, and just spending time in the galleries over there was, you just kind of got how it deserves its reputation as one of the capitals of art in the world. Just stunning works. It made me just be quite in awe with what human beings are capable of again. So it was a nice trip.
And how did your art journey start? For the guys who are listening to us, just give us a little breakdown on that.
Um, well, when I was born, well, sort of close to, because I was 5 years old, and I apparently turned the parents' pots and pans into a drum kit, and there's a picture of me doing that. It's actually in my house. There was something coming through me ever since I was a kid, and photography was an early tool for me as well. Around that time, maybe 5 or 6 years old, that I got my Fisher Price camera that I carried around with me everywhere. And eventually it was music, it was bands, and then film. I became a film director, got educated in the UK for that, and photography was a part of it already back then. And Photoshop, from the very early foundations of it, from year 99 or something like that, I was already using it. So um, I was very fond of doing these collage works and experimenting with things, and then having a production company, it just took me quite some time to realize what it really was that was going to be the genesis of my journey as a visual artist rather than a filmmaker. That I started body painting on people and telling their stories. It's not really about painting the body; it was about painting the picture of their story and how their story relates to the bigger story of humanity. And you have one of those expressions behind you. And uh, uh, I started experimenting also due to this process of photography and painting and collaging into animation, then to augmented reality, virtual reality. And I had digital originals since 2008, so I kind of needed the blockchain technology before it was a thing. My art was born around the same time as Bitcoin was, but it took quite a while before Bitcoin or any of those things were going to lead into any applications that I could actually use to authenticate my work and those kinds of things. And in 2016, I kind of went full time into crypto art. So that's been a part of the journey, and I suppose one of the major reasons why we're talking to one another, of how we know each other and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And since you said you began as a 5-year-old with going crazy on the pots and pans, you have to be so grateful that you were born in a different continent and not in India. Otherwise, you would have got beaten up, my friend.
Well,
You
potentially, if I would have been born into a Vaishnava family, I probably would have been singing Hare Krishna and drumming away very happily at some temple or something like that. So it depends maybe a little bit on which kind of a family, but the standard maybe commercial route, I would have gotten my ass beat. That's for sure.
Since you spoke about body painting, the art behind me is also a part of that series.
Yeah, that was a particular one. That was one of the first ones where I really kind of mixed um, doing the body painting and photography journey and kind of the crypto art themes, because that particular piece is called Block Justice, and it was made with this model called Mimi. And what she's kind of holding in her hands like that are these two blocks that are, and being the goddess of justice, she's sort of balancing things, and those were some of the early crypto themes that we were playing about with, of what is human sovereignty, what is this, how are the monetary systems interacting with humanity right now, and what's sort of deadwood about them, and what are these new distributed ledgers, and their potential for human empowerment, really. And those were the kinds of themes that we were exploring from the early days, from 2016 to onward, really. But already at that point, I had about 300 high resolution digital originals that I needed to authenticate and kind of take to the world with. And the institutions of the art world and the galleries really didn't know what to do with me. They didn't know how they could work with me, since I didn't have an oil original. They didn't quite understand that since it looks like an oil painting, that it's actually kind of photography or collage work, or those kinds of things. And that's maybe not so interesting to people in the crypto audience to begin with, but it's a lot of work and a lot of substance that couldn't exist nor have real value in the traditional gallery realms before we now started having these systems. So it's a big discussion on value. What determines value, and why do we need these systems, and what the actual evolution is. And you and I, we both went through the first flush of NFTs and the sort of craziness that was, which was, not to put it too harshly, but it had a lot of the sort of worst parts of the traditional art world and a lot of the worst parts of the digital one. So hopefully now, maybe under a different name or a different concept or something like that, the underlying technology to verify digital culture is still as necessary as it was at the first flush of it. And we've kind of needed that stuff for about 4 decades, 5 decades maybe. So we have it now. Maybe the name of the NFT is ruined somewhat to most people, but the technology is more necessary than ever.
You jumped into crypto art way before, even 2017, when almost no one was even saying the word NFT. And you did mention about your, the journey there. How does it feel to now be like a certified pioneer, like at least in your head, you know that you were way ahead of the trend? Does that give you confidence, arrogance? Like, where does it take? Because I've met a lot of artists, and I've told you this even in person, that you are perhaps one of the most grounded artists who I've met and had conversations with.
Well, yeah, thank you for those words. That means a lot, because we artists aren't usually known for being grounded or sane even. I've worked hard on that. So thank you for that recognition. Um, I suppose, well, certainly not arrogance, and confidence to a certain degree, I suppose, as in that I only knew how to do this by following what I thought was exciting and interesting, and potentially had the potential of pushing something forward. And that happened in my creativity, first in the storytelling, also in the film realm, adopting digital very early. But it was really because I was doing art in a specific kind of way, it was resulting in things that I realized that people hadn't at all done before me, or hadn't put it together quite similarly as I had. And it was really necessity for the technology or the necessity of the process that dictated why I was early to some things. Like, for example, thematically, it was this philosopher called Ken Wilber, who was considered the father of integral theory, who taught me by reading his books and getting to know his world that I could approach things by taking different segments and sectors of life and combining them in a holistic way. And I realized very early that in an arts education, what happens to you quite often is that they teach you everything that they think you should know, and a footnote after footnote of who made this and who made that and whatever. And you're told to kind of look into all the masters and what they did as work, let's say as visual artists. And what I realized through Ken very early is that I didn't see in art any of the substance or the topics of what he was exploring done by the modern masters. I mean, you should still know your Picassos and Da Vinci's and Kahlos and the whole of the range of everything that there is in the art world. But as an art student or a young person, you weren't told that you could go to Ken Wilber to find your inspiration of the topics and your own process of how to bring that forward. And there were then some very important things that happened. And I suppose that did go to my head for a little bit when Professor Michael Schwartz said that my art is amongst the most integrally advanced in the history of Western abstraction. This was already 2013 or 14 that he said that. So he put me in the same category as all of the greats of the whole of the West. But because integral theory and what that quote actually meant wasn't very well understood in the art world, potentially they just thought that it's just one wacky professor who said something like this, and maybe it can't be taken as seriously, then it didn't really do much of a difference in the gallery realm or the institutional realm of art. It didn't help me to make a financial anything really in the art world, despite having the substance and having some academic quotes and getting a lot of press and all of this kind of thing. But it didn't really open up too many doors in the art world. So I was really early to the crypto art scene because I was really suffering. I was living in a hut, becoming 40 in basically a bike shed in someone's backyard with my then fiance, now wife, in London. I had to leave my country because I couldn't make a living. I couldn't really make a living in London either. And I had all of this wealth in my digital production that I'd done at my own expense, and lots of levels of cortisol kind of trying to survive. And then I had these amazing things, and I'd done that Veena Malik project that you know with that Bollywood actress. That was also 2013 that we reached 300 million people, but it didn't do anything to my finances. I had all of the sort of backing of, let's say, someone could have said, oh, okay, this guy is a superstar, that just didn't really show in my real life at all at that point. And when I discovered the idea of distributed ledgers and Satoshi Nakamoto and the story of Bitcoin and all of that kind of thing, it really started opening up a super highway. But there was so little crypto art that I considered to be sophisticated art anywhere to be discovered at that point that I really did think that I discovered crypto art. So I think of that what you will, whether it's arrogant or not, but there really wasn't something that you could too much find that was on par with the innovation itself and what the potential significance of it was. And this is a long roundabout way of me saying that I was early to, let's say, integral art, because there wasn't much something like that back in the day when I was starting to do it, and I just followed my intuition and my inspiration of what I thought was cool or important. And the same with crypto art. I only know how to do this because I can actually sign what I think is the underlying value of the proposition of what I'm bringing forward. So again, in a long roundabout way, it would be idiotic to become arrogant about it, because there's no need to become arrogant about something that has validity and substance in the world. it's the work itself that should do all of those kinds of things rather than trying to be a poser.
Spoken beautifully. It does, kind of cover all of this. Now, going back, if you had to um, change maybe your approach or your thought pattern, or maybe even your art, what do you think you would have gone back in time and uh, kind of changed something?
It's very hard to change anything, because if I were to change something from the journey, I would have thought completely differently and would have ended up in a completely different trajectory. It's unfortunate that the institutions weren't ready for a conversation. It's unfortunate that there was so much money and hype involved in the first flush of NFTs, and kind of juxtaposed with the COVID pandemic and all of the associated things that people weren't able to make a living, and mom and pop shops were burning, and all of a sudden you had to, maybe there was this thing that you'd make some silly cartoons and make $1 million. I mean, you can't change the variety of different kinds of things that were impacting things at the time, and I'm not really sure whether that would be a fruitful um, kind of thought exercise. What it is that I can do is that I can still bring forward the ideas that I was exploring back then, and the kinds of things that we were doing, like the art car project with Dr. Marwan, and the potential that it has now more than ever to influence the cityscape of Dubai, and what the map that we made with that project is possible to do now on an international scale, because it's really digital work and it's physical work, and it's them combined in a way that every layer of the process is necessary. You can't erase anything from it, because everything builds upon the next layer and the next layer. And that's sort of the cool thing about it, is that the digital original scales in such a way that you can have the artwork on your wall, or it can be the whole wall, and you can make that unique in a variety of different kinds of ways. And then the same artwork can be applied to your car, your house, or villa, or whatever. And in the physical realm, you can start to use the world as a canvas. But due to the blockchain layer kind of thing, the indestructibility of a digital artwork that is, for example, verified on the blockchain on Bitcoin or something like that, uh, even if the physical gets destroyed, you can prove the ownership of your digital one. And just that provenance side of it is solves a lot of problems in the art world, from authentication to preserving the works and all of that kind of thing. But most of our lives are really digital now. It's um, you live on Instagram, we're streaming on Instagram, and most people live on their phones ridiculous amounts of time of the day, which I do as well. And our lives have so much to do with the digital expression, and where it can scale from here. Your digital galleries, your digital living spaces, and the online presentations are another thing. And in order for you to verify that, for example, you own an artwork of mine, if it's on the blockchain, can be from where you're now in China in a couple of minutes, and people know that the art that you have in your background there is actually yours, rather than you scanning different documents and sending them over and trying to kind of convince people that no, this authentication paper is the real one, and or I'll post it to you to Shanghai or whatever, things like that. So all of these things are necessary and kind of combining. And what I think is quite funny is that the first flush of this digital ledger art was really about the digital only, and now everyone's raving about the real world assets, that you have to have a physical thing, that that's the valuable thing, because now the digital isn't so valuable. But it's so obvious that it's both of them together. The word monster digital, what phygital, I can't say that I'm too much of a fan of it. But it does describe what it is. It's that you're merging these two worlds and taking the best parts of them in order to be as impactful as powerful as possible. And I think that's fairly easy to make that case. And that's why even though some of the institutions weren't yet understanding what it is that I've been doing, and now they're catching up with that. Galleries are slowly catching up with that, and whatever. But that's I became a consultant because I've been at this for 20 years, thinking of the applications on both sides of these things when no one was really paying attention, or then they were paying attention just because of a massive gold rush for a hot minute. So I kind of realized that I can help people, others as well as myself, to kind of go through these things in such a way that you don't have to be too embarrassed about the cartoon that you bought for $1 million just a while ago that now went to zero as a value.
Well said. Well said. Since you spoke about digital spaces a little earlier, I have a video that I want to play and then we'll talk about it.
Into the Genesis block.
We can't see it, right? Okay, now we can.
My data bill of rights into the Genesis block.
Oh, cool.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wow, this is crazy. Oh, and then you can see the back of that down here. What? The balloon. Oh, and the key.
What is happening?
Well, if you don't mind, show the Ferrari, the art car Ferrari, before I talk about that combination of things.
Wait, let's put this in.
Yeah, so
Reset.
what was happening in the previous clip is that that was from the production of a project that we embarked upon together with Brittany Kaiser, the famous Cambridge Analytica whistleblower and data activist, who's since blossomed into someone who's massively influential in the blockchain space because of the amount of legislation and sense making that she's brought to the space of kind of bridging together different sectors again for them to understand each other better. And what she had on the background there was one of the pieces that was made into this experimental studio earlier, that then was applied also to that art Ferrari. So that's why I wanted to show you that part, is that it can travel from a physical large thing into an object. And then, of course, Brittany is there with the VR glasses of one of the pieces that was in front of her called the Brave. And she was exploring the virtual reality side of that artwork that was, I think, about 6-7 meters or something like that in front of her as a physical piece. So that experimental studio was something that I really loved, and we built it around 21, I think. Yeah, 21, and it was this round 360 shape of it, and everything was made out of art: the couches, the benches, the floor, and the whole thing. And the idea was that you come into the space and you're fully immersed in it, in a physical way, but then you just sit on the art couch and you put on the glasses, and then you get submerged into a completely different thing. And what was behind the curtain of the studio was this green screen space where we recorded Brittany and her story as a data Kaiser into these various forms of art. So it was a holistic production house, essentially showcasing already back then what was possible, and then literally also creating in that same space the things that we thought were the most exciting things to be embarking upon at that time.
Vesa, with all the AI stuff that's going on, I want you to be real with me. When all these crazy AI tools started spitting out artwork like in seconds, did you, like, for a split second, panic, like, what is this? And, is this going to take my job too? Or were you already using them like you were over caffeinated studio?
That's a good question. I think anyone with any sense was panicking there for a minute, because the tools were so incredible all of a sudden. But it takes a little while to settle into realizing what it is that the machines or the LLMs really can't do, even as a combination yet. And it has a lot to do with the real world applications of what it is to be a human to begin with. We need each other. I mean, there isn't really anything that can be a substitute for me knowing you or the kinds of things that we're working on together, and won't be for a long time, and maybe never. And this is also why the word phygital, I think, is quite important, because there's things about the us, that how we need each other and how we're kind of interconnected. And also the function of art is there to do is to facilitate some of these conversations. And because every project that I've done and every artwork that I've done has tested me as a human being and allowed me to grow. It's not only the end result that is the artwork that you're looking at. You're looking at an artist's life, and you're looking at their contribution and philosophy and networks and all of these different kinds of things that kind of become these fruit, I suppose, as in like the artwork behind you. But if you go into knowing the artist and the work behind it, it's not only about the one artwork or the result, it's about the whole span of the career and what you went through as a human being that you can transmit to other human beings, of what might be important about that story to them, or what becomes important to their story from the artwork that they collected or interacted with. So I wouldn't want to generate that image behind you with a click of a button, because it becomes masturbatory. It becomes something that doesn't really have that much meaning for me as a person to make, nor as an artist to embark upon. It doesn't make sense to generate all of that stuff, because then I'd miss. It's kind of like this, it's did you ever play any computer games or something where you were allowed to put like God mode on for a while, you know?
My friend, it's called cheat code.
Right. Okay. So how boring does it get pretty much immediately after you put those codes on and you just blast everyone away or whatever, and you can't be harmed or something like that? It just sucks. And it's the same for art. If you just kind of put the cheat code on like that, you won't be a very good public speaker, because you didn't go through any of the stories that allow you to share something with the world. You're not going to be too much of a husband to your wife if you haven't gone through the trials and tribulations, and maybe you only just made a bunch of money very fast, and then you end up in a very different kind of relationship with your other half, or maybe you don't want one because you haven't really developed that side of yourself. There's so many different aspects that you go through as a person. If you're an engineer, if you're an artist or a mathematician, but all of these things that are in jeopardy, so to speak, and maybe we change all of our capitalistic or monetary models of how we earn a living, or what it is to, so many things are in flux, but there's no shortcut to you having to go to the gym. And I think this is the same with our work and our purpose and our meaning. And I think the general world can learn a lot at this point in time from creatives and artists who kind of live in this soup their whole lives, because the end of an era of this industrial sludge that we've been kind of hoisting ourselves into and swimming in, and it's just, it doesn't matter what you do, just make money and pollute everything and everyone at the same time as you keep doing that stuff. I think that era is thankfully coming to an end, and we have to re-examine what it is that who we are and what we are and why we're doing the things that we do to begin with. Of course, you need to make money and make sure that you survive and your family is well and all of those kinds of things. But it's like even if we make very fancy art cars in Dubai or something like that, and there's these value conversations, a lot of those cars actually through the art end up being questions about where a car can take you. It's really cool that you have status and you have flashy and you have identity and all those kinds of things, and maybe you even make a lot of money kind of investing into that thing and explore it. But is there nothing that keeps you awake at night about why it is that you're a human being and kind of in this flesh and bone suit? Does it bring you any closer to ideas of your immortality, that your time is going to end at some point? And what does this whole thing mean? And the car is also a symbol for all of those kinds of stories. The art itself stands for something other than just money making or your status or how you get laid or whatever. There's so much more to it if you just allow yourself to let the car transport you there. And that's really what the thing is about. And I think from the gallery standpoint, they misunderstand it to be something flashy for Dubai. But in terms of what it actually is, it's one of the most profound art projects in a while. It's just that you have to look deeper into the whole thing in order to realize that by changing the kind of RTA category of allowing these art cars and the digital transformation to come about in Dubai, they're doing something profound that no one else in the world is doing at this moment in time. And it's filled with art substance if you actually look into it. But most people won't, and they're too busy. So that's part of the problem. Everyone can produce everything at the click of a button, but everyone's kind of running on a hamster wheel, not looking at important questions or what it is that people are building.
Deep. We now have Sarah, who's just joined us. She got stuck
Sarah,
in
nice
the.
to see you. You
Hello,
just came
how
at
have you
the wrong
been?
time. You came at the perfect time because we were swimming deep in philosophy, and I think we were starting to lose some audience here. So you can help come and brighten us
I
back
was
up.
actually searching for South Indian filter coffee powder. We've been craving for that for the longest time.
Okay, hold on. This interview will go on. Go on. Did you get it?
Yes, I
Oh,
made
yeah.
sure I got it.
Sorry about a bit of personal talk, but you know what? Coffee is important.
Understood.
That's true.
I'm actually fasting. I'm fasting today. I've been fasting on and off for 2 months now, and the real only things that I consume in a day is just water and coffee. So I can really understand the importance of coffee.
Lovely. Sarah, do you have a question for Vesa?
I'm not sure what have you guys been speaking until now, but all I know is that you're talking about the cars and the designs on it.
No,
So,
we're talking deep. We are talking way deep. So,
oh my God,
uh,
like the Leonardo talks, Picasso talks, even
uh,
deeper.
so perhaps you know, uh, you. I think the way. Okay, so in 2026, if somebody wants to be an artist, what is the way ahead? How do they make that bag?
I think honestly, I'm not sugarcoating it at all. The only way to really be an artist is that you have to be one. That there's nothing really else that interests you, or everything else feels like it's going to be impossible because you can't be yourself unless if you are that. And that's really the only thing that will allow you to go through all the trials and tribulations and difficulties in order for you to sustain yourself to keep being an artist when the world starts to beat you up. And it will do so very consistently as long as you are one. So, I mean, you can make a living perhaps if you're a marketing genius and you take the identity of an artist and you can make a living. But I think to yourself, you can't necessarily, with your voice of conscience, feel like you're an artist, and therefore kind of defeats the purpose, because there are so many other ways that you can make a living that is easier than that. So the only way that I know how to approach this whole thing, like we started, Volley, with the beginning, is how I landed into integral art or distributed ledgers or anything, is to actually truly be inspired by the thing that I'm doing and kind of uh, going for it. And if I have that goal in mind, no matter what life throws at me, um, whether it was the death of my child or catastrophic finances or illness and things like that, I wouldn't be able to do that stuff unless if I had to. So if this question in a roundabout way is like, what if you're a young artist and you're trying to see if that's in you? Of course, follow that with everything that you've got, but be honest along the journey, whether that's something that you can't breathe without. Because if you can breathe without it, it's probably better that you do.
That's actually very deep. I can connect with you because I wanted to get into art, drawing, animation, but back then my parents told me that there's no future. It's better you get a degree because this will not take you ahead anywhere. So what you're saying is what I feel. I should have continued along with my studies, but I didn't. I think that I took it too much to my heart that I had to stop completely, and I didn't want to go ahead with it because I just wanted to quit schooling and go ahead with Steven Spielberg schooling, where they taught you to draw animation and graphics. That is what I wanted to do at the end of the day.
Sure. Or if I may challenge that a little bit, because you see, me saying this might come across as unkind, but it might actually be kind. It depends on how you interpret it. But because the thing is that your parents said something and you believed them, and it might actually have been crueler that they said, go ahead and do it, and then you did it, and then you found out that it wasn't that important to you. It would have been a nice step and maybe getting an education, spend 2-3 years there, and then end up doing something else and whatever. But see, now you're kind of wondering whether you could have been an artist and if you only followed it then. And what happened to me is that my parents did everything that they can sort of to discourage me from doing it. But because I couldn't think of not doing it, I did it anyway. So, and to say that might come across unkind to begin with, but I think it's actually could be liberating to you that you ended up doing something very creative, and you're doing it in such a way that it really makes sense to you and you really truly want to pursue. I don't think your parents could have talked you out of it if you really would have been set to do it. And maybe through that you can let go of the idea that you did something wrong. I don't think you did. You followed your voice of intuition, and maybe some of the reason of your parents that they thought that, if they forbid you to do it and you do it anyway, then that's going to be inside of you no matter what. And I think, look at, now you have a beautiful family with Volley. You have such a tremendous kids. I see you educating them in such a cool way. They're going to be amazing. And both of you are working very creatively in the fields of where you want to be working in. And you're very sensible about probably how you make money as well. So I don't think you have to look back at anything in regret in any kind of way whatsoever. And you can still keep now increasing the skills that you want to have being creative.
I've never seen this deep side of yours. This is very interesting for me, actually, because most of the time we have spoken a lot of fun stuff. But then tell me, when you see your cars in Dubai, or the first time when you saw your car, your art car in Dubai, like what kind of accomplishment was it for you, like as an artist with the mindset, and what did it do to you? Like mentally for your growth?
There were so many things, and I have to give so much credit to Dr. Marwan also for that, and of course, Crypto Granny, aka Anita Kalergis, who's the one who kind of spotted me and brought me to Dubai and introduced me to Dr. Marwan. But Dr. Marwan's realization, because when we first met with him in 2020, when I came over to Dubai, the art car was one of the, I don't know, 10 things that we discussed, and that was only in passing, but it was his understanding and knowledge about Dubai culture, that it's an art culture and there's a little bit of peacocking going on and those kinds of things, that he realized that this might be something interesting, and he looked into what was possible to do. And it was the necessity again that was the mother of invention in this case, because he first did a car with only a bit of graffiti to try and get that to go through RTA. And at that time, the Road and Motor Association only allowed for you to have 4 colors and basic shapes on a car. And he kind of went at it, that we made the first 2 cars and we wrapped them. And through this process that he kept doing for about a year and a half, first it was allowed that you could have a multicolor artwork, complex artwork on a car, and that became possible to license and drive on the streets. And then as a cherry on top, the white car that we call the Praying Mantis, in events like the WoW Summit and a couple of others, I painted on top of the wrap with acrylics, which was again another license hurdle that he had to navigate in order to make possible, so that there really is a one-of-one in this particular way done and allowed to be driven now on the streets. And it's not only us that can do it, it's that this process changed the regulation of Dubai, of what's now possible there. And to answer your question, I felt immense pride that I'd landed in a space where I felt I could collaborate with a person like Dr. Marwan, and that this resulted in something that is essentially potentially a transformation of a city, and what the implications are then of what could be done elsewhere. Because even the idea of an art car is nothing new. I mean, the BMW has been doing them since the 60s, 70s, something like that, and people have probably been painting on cars for a very long time. But the process of how I do it, through photography and painting and digital collaging and then wrapping and painting, and then the digital cars that we produced, and the using blockchain technology in such a way that it could potentially become a new asset class, and the implications again that we could put those on houses and villas and yachts and whatever, a variety of different kinds of applications of that. I did feel that this was a part of my arrival as an artist. It hasn't been yet commercially or at scale embraced in Dubai. We haven't really been able to find an exchange like Binance or someone who would do their own art car, even though I think we pitched it at some point, but there was such many things going on with Binance at that point. But this really is not just an art car. It's a symbol for a whole system and a transformation, and that's what's really exciting about it. And the potential is still as crazy as ever of what we could achieve of doing with these things, and what that means for the international value conversation. I have a dream that I, you know, it's silly to say that in the voice of Malcolm X in this context, but in the context of this art car project, I do have a dream that we would get this to be on a ledger of a conservative Swiss bank, and then have that conversation of what it is to go down the rabbit hole of digital assets and how they can interact with the physical world.
And that's a beautiful mansion.
Could be. That's made by architectural firm who who kind of was kind enough to give me some time to envision what they could look like. And oh, this is something really cool that is now going to be sort of public for the world for the first time, is in that Bugatti is one of the most selective companies in the world when it comes to their clientele, and you might be in a waiting list for a long time to get one if you're dealing with the factory direct. And we now have a direct line to Bugatti and Rimac to produce an art car with the factory, and if we can find someone who might be interested in that, Bugattis come with a lifetime warranty and that kind of a thing, that there's a whole process in place that we could make potentially one of the most amazing Bugattis ever made. So if you do know someone with that kind of collector mindset, then we're open to that kind of a conversation. That's just a mock-up that I did earlier some time ago, and I'd been presenting it around, but I didn't know back then when I made the mock-up that we could actually work direct with the factory, which is now something that opened up about a week and a half ago, actually.
Congratulations, man. I think a tie with Bugatti would be fucking credible. Not just for you as an artist, but for people, or for artists across the world. Because traditionally we see that companies like Ferrari, Bugatti, and so on and so forth are very not just premium, but also very cocky about the way their brand is presented. So a potential tie-up is going to blow this out of the world. Let's now talk about what tokens do you hold, or what does your portfolio look like? Because we have a lot of people who come in here, and we always want to know what are their favorite coins or tokens, and why is it so?
Well, it's it's been a lot of living from savings of lately. So it's I only really want to talk about Bitcoin if I ever do, and it's because of the solid foundation of the coin and the nature of it, that Bitcoin was kind of like a virgin birth, and you can't really replicate it. I know that there's substance and value to many of the chains, and Bitcoin can't really do in digital art what I would require it to do. So I don't talk about it from the standpoint of just my selfish needs. I think it's just technology that the world needs, and it's the one that can sustain all the blows and the whirlwinds of the world in order for it to be something that people should be into. So and I think I started my own coin already back 2018 or 19, but I never sold it as something that uh, should have liquidity inside of it. Maybe someday it will, but I didn't want to kind of rug pull through either a mistake or being scammed or some technological failure or anything like that. I didn't really want to have that happen to me, and then that influence my artistic reputation or the things that I say. So Vesa coin is still in existence, and it was done on ETH, and that kind of a thing. And maybe at some point, I used it basically. I just gave people tokens as a reward if they helped me out or were a part of a project somehow, that maybe in the future somehow this will allow you access to something that I'm doing, or maybe will have value in the future. But I certainly wasn't talking about it like that. But that's still a potential conversation, because artists should have their own ecosystems and their own reward systems for their communities. So that's maybe a future conversation that is interesting. But Bitcoin is really the thing, and for all the obvious reasons, if you really get into the philosophy of it, because I didn't get into crypto art, to sell my grandmother's token. I really got inspired by what these systems could do to balance the offset power structures of finance in the world. And that's really still the core of the inspiration of it. And it's difficult to talk about the art side and the ledger side at the moment, because there were so many people who bought art minted on Ethereum that now lead to page 404s, and so many platforms that went under and couldn't sustain themselves. There's only a couple of them left, and there's a lot of $1 million artworks that are now lost at a digital sea, never to be seen or recovered. So the only thing that feels not risky to talk about is Bitcoin and what it stands for.
I think played safe, but played very well. True. For all the retail investors, right? If I meet somebody, which is rare, who's not outside the Web3 or the crypto space, well, I'm just so surrounded and kind of bottlenecked only with our folks. But if I happen to meet somebody from outside, the first thing that they tell me is that, hey, what happened to the NFTs, with a smirk? And a lot of people say that NFTs are dead. Now, you and I know the truth, but what would you like to tell every retail investor about NFTs?
Well, I'm personally trying to stay as far away from the word as possible, even though that's kind of ironic because the multiple awards that I've gotten are for NFT artist or Web3 artist or things like that. I wish there was more integral artist awards or something of the sort of the institutions otherwise would have embraced what I've done thus far. But I think they will come back. I already saw, like, when Art Basel was in Miami, you could already see it, that there was a fork happening, that the fine art world was going to embrace digital collectibles and digital art, and maybe the verification systems to a degree. But already back then it started decoupling from crypto art and NFTs and all of this kind of thing, because the communities of fine art and crypto art really are quite irredeemably different of how they approached it. And I just heard myself a lot during the boom period of talking that you should really decouple the cartoon collectibles from the fine art side of this thing, or the substance art side of things, because the collectibles were benefiting from the reputation of art and the prestige of it, to kind of also say that what they were doing were art to some degree. And of course, this, to any serious gallerist or kind of person working in that field, came across as a terrible voucher, and it wasn't helping the art side of things really emerge. But there's still, what was really important about the crypto art conversation was that the stagnant side of the institutional art world, which has been somewhat stuck in a certain paradigm, you could argue 4 decades or even a century now. And what the early crypto artists were trying to escape from is the stagnation of those institutions and their smugness and their self-content in their world that they had inside of a bubble. And then all of a sudden, the whole world had a new tool to do something interesting, and then they didn't know what to do about it. So that's what I mean when I said that we kind of saw in the first flush of NFTs the worst of the both worlds. We saw people who really didn't know what they were doing, often in the digital art side or NFTs, and then them wanting to get institutional validation for the things that what they were doing, and that wasn't happening at all in a sensible way. So in some sense, I would say that the institutions were able to hold on to some of their smugness, and then the digital side was completely unsustainable. And what we really should have is a much more open institutional conversation about value and distributed ledgers and really narrative control. that they'd been implementing inside of the art world, that the crypto art and NFTs were blowing open. And now the next phase of it will be something, hopefully, where the institutions are going to be more open, which I feel that they will be. And then the digital art side and the conversation of that is going to be a little bit more embedded into the history of art. And I really don't have too much of an opinion on NFTs, the collectible side, or the kind of, the Magic the Gathering kind of feel of that side of things. It's never really my world, and I don't really want to put it down because it's its own world. I just wanted to separate from the world of fine art in a way that it doesn't hurt the art side of things. I mean, go at it, make all the games in the world and all the cool things and the clubs and whatever, but it really shouldn't touch what the substance side of the digital art world and its evolution can and should be.
You're on mute.
Sorry. So I think every conversation with you, really brings out the light. And please continue to keep spreading the light and the joy with your artwork. What is Vesa up to next? What should we anticipate from Vesa?
Well, what I really spent, because these things that we talked about now, I've talked about before, but maybe you see it come through a different kind of a lens or a tone or somewhat of a presentation, because the last 2 years, because my son arrived, he's now a year and a half.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and and congratulations to you on your new child. So it's been a period of intense internal reflection. It's like there was so much outer expression that was happening in Dubai, and I needed kind of a compression state where I needed to purge out a lot of things that was deadwood, kind of reconfigure what it is that who I am and what my values are and what the contribution therefore to the world should be. And I spent a couple of years now thinking about things, and I don't want to talk about them yet. I shared some of the things earlier with you privately, and I'm not ready to kind of bring those out into the world for even just copyright and kind of protective reasons. I don't want to bring them out, but there's a whole new, the James Brown song, Papa's got a brand new bag. So that's appropriate for a lot of different reasons. But I combined my two websites into one, which is Vesa.one. I kind of honed the language. I packaged it in a way that now feels the most authentic version of it. And in this process, I realized how much I'd miscommunicated myself and how much I'd allowed things that really shouldn't be burdened to other people about my own journey and my own kind of things in the outward conversation. It's still, as you maybe kind of heard from this, I'm not pulling any punches. I want it to be authentic and to the core, but the reflection was really good for me because I also realized how much I'd missed out in opportunities not being clear on what it is that I wanted or how to talk about it. So Vesa.one is a compression of all of that into something concise, and the outreach is now starting in a very different kind of way. And the things, and especially that one thing that I showed you earlier, I couldn't be more excited about. And there's a lot of focus on this art car project as well, and wellness altogether. That's maybe one thing that, as a last thing that I wanted to say, is that because people saw me kind of like get quite big in Dubai because I had a lot of autoimmune issues, and I was just trying to find either medicine or supplements or exercise or a kind of thing that worked for me, and I really wasn't in good shape trying to figure that stuff out. And I finally, in these last 2 years, figured all of that stuff out and realized that wellness from a multitude of angles has always been at the core of my art, whether it's financial sovereignty, or whether it's spiritual cohesion and ideas, or whether it's the biohacking communities and those kinds of things, being a part of it and realizing how the world works and what the incentives are, how the structures are, to try and figure out the holistic way of approaching it. But human wellness is a really a theme that is now going to be a part of the new outreach, and how to go about interacting with the world. So that's something that I'm super excited about, because I bring it up in conversations that are not related to it, simply because I think if I just talk about the wellness side and what this can do, and just imagine this. This is maybe cool as a final anecdote, and why to do this, and kind of bringing some numbers to it. The Cedars-Sinai Hospital in the United States has a $4 billion art collection because of the way that you get tax breaks when you donate art to the hospitals there. So they're filled with art, and they have creative programs and all of this kind of things presented in the hospital setting. And anyone who's been to hospital, which is most people for a variety of reasons, knows how stressful that environment is. And cortisol spiking is really related to a lot of different problems in our lives, the amount of stress that we have. And the research that they did to their own art collection interacting with their hospital setting saw a reduction of sometimes 75% of cortisol in those people interacting with the art in the hospital setting. And that is with art that is not intentionally made, nor utilizing modern technology in specific in those kinds of environments, of what creative workshops and things like that can do. So that's another kind of compressed thing of what that means in terms of how many days you're going to be spending in the hospital, what kind of experiences you're going to have, and how well you heal when you're in that hospital, of how you interact with those kinds of things. And that's tangible data. It's not something that is a woo-woo dream of an artist, or maybe this or maybe that. You can actually show the numbers that are incredible and so beneficial to those who might be in those distressful situations, let alone if you implement some of that stuff to the biohacking sphere, and you bring that creativity to your journey already before you're ill, and kind of how you maintain your social cohesion, mental health, and all of those kinds of things. If you already kind of assume the identity of being more of a creative, that AI and all of these systems now that we're birthing are going to give us more time and resources to be available to us. So yeah, all of that stuff, that's pretty good.
Sarah, go ahead, do the closing.
I'm speechless, firstly, and Wally has always told me that find a silver lining in everything that you do, and don't get disappointed. And everything that I've heard and learned and noted with this conversation, I would like to thank you, Vesa, for sharing all your thoughts and going in depth, because not just us, but many other people like traders, um, uh, crypto investors, they really need that motivation to keep going on and not getting disappointed, and finding the silver lining in every possible thing in your life. Thank you so much, guys. I wasn't there in the first part, but I will have another conversation with Vesa and Wali soon, with another episode very soon, next week, probably.
I sent a message to Vesa. Did I send that to you?
Are you asking?
I actually sent a message to Vesa during this, and you somehow read my message. I don't know how. Vesa, could you read that message? The text that I sent you?
No, I did. I checked. Absolutely, 100%. We should do that. That would be super lovely.
I actually sent a
message. If I may hijack just for a moment, because you're the both of you not only are collaborators, but you've become dear personal friends, and I do see you, Vali, in the Dubai scene, and everywhere where you go, is that you kind of lift the mood of the place every time, and the spirit of it wherever you go, and you bring people together, and you kind of are one of those people who is always looking for that silver lining as well. And I know that reflects to your beautiful family, Sarah, we've hung out a few times, not as much as with Valley, but I always get something out of being in your presence as well. So this is not only a nice way to come back to public speaking after a while, but really just a way to hang out with friends. And I'd love to do it again anytime with you guys when that's possible.
Thank you so much, Vesa. Thank you.
Let's do this soon again. Thank you so much for your time.
Take care, Vesa. Bye bye.
Ciao.
Good luck.